This video will provide a program overview of the California DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant, as well as training content for college financial aid administrators working with web grants. Effective in the 2021-2022 school year, the California DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant, or DSIG, offers additional financial aid to DREAM Act applicants with a Cal Grant B who perform community or volunteer work. The DSIG awards up to $3,000 per academic year, which is $1,500 per semester or up to $1,000 per quarter to 2,500 eligible students. The grant will be available for up to 8 semesters or 12 quarters while they have an active Cal Grant B award. Students must also meet satisfactory academic progress and complete any necessary verification for their Cal Grant B award. In order to be eligible, a student must submit their California DREAM Act application each year and have an active Cal Grant B award. They must also have sufficient unmet financial need, which includes at least $3,000 and the unmet need required to have been awarded the Cal Grant B. They must complete community or volunteer service hours in that academic year, and they shall perform at least 150 hours per semester or 100 hours per quarter of community or volunteer service, and they can volunteer with any of the organizations on the list of service organizations or with any organization not already on the list if it meets the criteria for a qualifying service organization. These places, if not on the list of service organizations, can complete and submit the Service Organization Registration Form found on the DSIG Forms webpage. A qualifying community or volunteer service organization includes any school on the Cal Grant eligible schools list. It can also include a nonprofit as defined in Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code and any federal, state, or local government entity. The organization shall have been established for a minimum of 2 years before the student begins volunteering. The work performed cannot be in advocacy of a political, social, or religious nature, and the volunteer service is related to the participating student's field of study or is in furtherance of community service or community need. Organizations can submit the Service Organization Registration Form to register as a qualifying organization. CSAC will verify that they meet the criteria outlined on this slide. All Cal Grant eligible campuses that offer volunteer student positions are eligible to participate in DSIG as a qualifying organization. The eligible schools list is updated annually. All student forms needed for the DSIG program are available on the CSAC website at www.csac.ca.gov/DSIG/forms. These forms include the grant application supplemental form, the service hours tracker, the payment request form, and the payment request supplemental form. In addition, businesses that wish to participate in DSIG can also find the Service Organization Registration Form at the same URL. This flowchart shows the steps to the application process, which we will detail on the next few slides. Students will have to download and complete Sections 1, the demographics part, and 4, the signature of the application. The student then takes the application to the financial aid office at their college and to the service organizations where they will complete their volunteer work. The financial aid office will complete Section 2, and the service organization will complete Section 3. After obtaining the necessary signatures, the student will send the DSIG application to CSAC for processing and approval for registration into the program. After approval into the program, CSAC will notify the student via email. We will break down these steps further over the next couple of slides. Here is the screenshot of the grant application. In Section 1, the student completes the demographic information and then takes the application to the financial aid office. If volunteering with more than one organization, the student will also need to include the 2021-2022 Grant Application Supplemental Form. In Section 2, the financial aid administrator will certify that the student has sufficient unmet need of at least $3,000 to qualify. Next, the student takes the application to the service organization. If the student is completing volunteer service at more than one organization, an application for each volunteer site will need to be submitted to ensure that each service organization is eligible. The service organization will provide the date that they were established, Qualifying organizations must have been established for at least 2 years before the student begins volunteering. They will also provide their employer identification number and the name and signature of certifying officials. The certifying official can be the same as the contact person for the service organization, and the name and signature of the certifying official will be used to validate the document tracking the service hours performed. If service hours are performed with more than one service organization, then the student can utilize the grant application supplemental form to list additional organizations. The last step is for the student to sign and submit the application to CSAC. CSAC will then notify students once approved for the program, and if the organization is not a qualifying organization, the student will be notified and can resubmit an application to volunteer with a different organization. After being notified of approval to the DSIC program, students will utilize the Service Hours Tracker to document service hours performed. The service organization must sign for approval of all completed volunteer hours. After completing 150 hours for the semester or 100 hours for the quarter, students submit the payment request form and the service hour tracker to CSAC, which we will see on the next slide. After tracking and completing the required volunteer service hours, students may request payment. The payment request flowchart follows a similar process to the application flowchart. After the student has completed their required volunteer service hours, they will download the payment request form and complete sections 1 and 4, the student demographic and signature sections. The student then takes the form back to the financial aid office and service organization to verify and sign sections 2 and 3 respectively. The student sends the payment request form and the signed service hours tracker to CSAC for processing. If approved for payment, the student and financial aid office will be notified. CSAC will send the check to the college, and the college will notify the student that the check is available for pickup. Let's look at these steps in greater detail on the next slide. After completing the 150 hours for the semester or 100 hours for the quarter and obtaining the signature of the certifying official of the service organization, students submit the payment request form and the service hours tracker to CSAC. Students who volunteer at more than one organization will also submit the payment request supplemental form. Students will be notified once they have been approved for payment. To qualify for the maximum DSIC payments, students must complete 300 volunteer service hours within the academic year, July 1st to June 30th, although students can request payments by submitting a payment request form after every hourly block or increment completed. In other words, students at semester schools can receive up to 2 DSIC payments each year after every 150 hours of service work completed, whereas students at quarter schools can receive up to 3 payments in a year after every 100 hours worked. The deadline for payment request is mid-September. The exact date will be announced via listserv closer to the end of the school year. CSAC will verify hours worked and will mail checks to the college financial aid office for disbursement to students. Payments are prorated based on term attendance. We'll take a look at how this works on the next slide. Payment is prorated based on enrollment level. However, students must still fulfill the minimum number of required service hours for each payment period. Partial payments are not issued even if students volunteered partial hours. Please explain this to students who are not enrolled full-time and are considering applying to DSIC. Students attending less than half-time are not eligible for payment. As noted on the previous slide, students at semester schools can receive up to 2 payments annually based on fall and spring term enrollment, while students at quarter schools receive up to 3 payments annually based on fall, winter, and spring term enrollment. This chart shows 3 different payment scenarios at semester and quarter schools and based on term enrollment. In the first scenario, the student only earned half of the maximum payment because it was prorated based on half-time enrollment. In the second scenario, even though the student was enrolled full-time, they were ineligible for a DSIC payment because they did not complete the minimum 150 required service hours. They only completed 149 hours. Partial payments are not issued. In the third scenario, we can see the prorated amounts for fall and winter terms based on part-time attendance. CSAC will administer the program and will verify that students have received at least one Cal Grant B payment that the required volunteer service hours were completed at a qualifying organization and their term enrollment level. If all criteria is met, CSAC will issue a check in the student's name. Checks will be mailed to the financial aid office for direct disbursement to students, and CSAC will email both the student and the college financial aid administrator who signed the payment request once checks have been sent. The financial aid office needs to work the roster as normal by reporting student enrollment and pay Cal Grant B accordingly. They will also disperse the DSIG checks directly to the students. For more information, check out our Overview for Students and Overview for Institution web pages on our CSAC website. There you can find FAQs, DSIG flyers, and more information on how to apply for this program and how to administer it. The DSIG FAQ section for students has answers to questions such as when is the application due and does DSIG eligibility roll over? For answers to these questions and more, please check out our website. The FAQs for institutions has answers to the frequently asked questions as well as application and payment flowcharts to provide a visual representation of these processes. Now we will review some helpful resources. The Commission has developed promotional materials for the California DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant Program. Trifold brochures and flyers are available to download, print and post and distribute during financial aid nights and in Dreamer resource centers and other places around campus. We now also have outreach toolkits for schools and partner organizations to use for promoting certain programs and to encourage students to submit a FAFSA or DREAM Act application. There is a social media toolkit dedicated to promoting the Dreamer Service Incentive Grant. We encourage everyone to sign up for our listserv so that you can receive important updates and announcements from the Commission. Please follow the link at the bottom of the Commission's homepage at csac.ca.gov, and you can choose the types of alerts and notifications you wish to receive. Please engage with us on social media where we post important updates for students and schools. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, find us on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that you found it helpful and explained the program more. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to school support by phone or email.